We call on the one and only true spirit of life, the one and only creator of light. So, one of the interesting things in transition, as you transition from one frequency to another, and by the way, it's kind of fluid. Like, how many of us know this experience? And the idea, the illustration of listening to like songs on a radio, and the generations that have had experience with the old school radios where you literally like turn the dial and it skips, until you find a song. That's the best illustration of what it's like to be all of us, like physical people that are emitting frequencies. And except it's a lot more complex because there's so many contributing variables that will influence the frequency that we happen to be on, and we can change from moment to moment, and depending on what life circumstances are around and how much time we've had for self-care, all of those. So it's like that's why it takes serious intention and discipline and devotion and pursuit of the level up in order to be able to actually maintain it. And like I was saying in one of my last videos about, and then there are times where we get into a different frequency, but we don't know anybody there yet. So it's lonely. It can be lonely as you level up because you're like, all the people I knew were on the last frequency. And it's like, yeah, and sometimes I love that song. Sometimes I'll like go back to it in order just to, kick it with my homies, like be around people that know me, be around some familiar, because yeah, maybe it's not the most healthy, but it's what I know and it feels comfortable to be, you know what I'm saying? So I think we all deal with this in one way or another, and those who are more committed to being surrounded by people than they are about their own personal growth, they will choose to remain in a toxic frequency for their whole life just so they don't have to endure the discomfort of growth and change and possible solitude that would come with, the thing. So anyway, the message that was coming through was, during this time, I feel like it's a critical time, like in the landscape of spiritual identity and also just like the landscape of the world. It's like, it's game time. You know what I'm saying? Like in a new kind of, it always has been, but it's like, maybe this is like, I don't know how to put that point into words. I'm going to skip over that for now. Point is, it's important to right now make your selection and don't keep on living like you can keep putting it off. Like for some reason there's like, it's ironic too, because time is not linear, and time is kind of like a man-made construct, really. And yet there are these moments that come that are like in the waves, in the wavelength, in the waves of the spiritual assignment, I guess, like just in the waves of the spiritual tapestry. Then there are times where it's like heard all across the waves, like the same message. For example, I remember writing down the word shift. I just wrote it down in one of my, I'd flow with Holy Spirit, I would flow, I'd worship, I'd dance, I'd sing, and I'd write down whatever I was hearing. And this is before, this is long before, anyway, I won't get into that now. I didn't know what to call myself back then. And I didn't know at all where I fit because I was the only person like me that I knew of. And quite frankly, in religion, I remember hearing that psychics were bad. So it's like if I were to sit here and start realizing that I have these psychic capabilities, so I just like didn't, which is such a. The reason I bring this up is because we've got to stop. We cannot make people feel like they're bad for whatever their gifts are. Because I could have been developing these gifts in a lot more intentional way had I been connected in the right freaking people group that knew what was up, okay? Anyway, I digress. It's okay though. I mean, the thing is, like, the lessons that I learned now, I get to impart what I've learned, hoping that the next generation will do it differently and do it better. So it's kind of like I went through it, and I'm just hoping that like it will bear fruit by us all learning how to do things differently in the future. Okay, so I remember writing down that word shift, and that was before I had heard it out in culture at all, in this context specifically. And anyway, and the next thing you know, everybody's saying shift, 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 and I was like, oh. And like I said, at the time, I didn't know. I was like, that's bizarre. What's that mean? Anyway, so this is an experience that is, I'm sure everybody goes through it, where when you start leveling up, you have to make the choice. If you're going to go your own way, we're all singing that song right now. You can go your own way, go your own way. I don't really know those notes. You can go your own way, go your own way. Maybe something like that. But anywho, it's gonna, there might be some isolation and some solitude and some like you just getting to know you. Because the thing is, if you're surrounded in a loud room all the time by all these people, even if it's your kids, like if you're just constantly surrounded and you never have quiet time just to sit with your own self, how are you going to know who you are? How will you get to know yourself? And like we are ever evolving and growing, or we ought to be. So it's like, even if you knew who you were last year, like have you taken some time lately to be like, hey, who am I now? Like sit down and pay attention to who you are, because you're here for a reason, and all of the distraction and the escapism is so that you don't find out or remember who you are. They're like, if we can just keep them distracted, keep them fighting, keep them in conflict. Oh yeah, huge nugget. When it comes to everything that's going on in the world right now, between like political things, remember that the most important thing that you could ever remember is to not take the bait of drama and hatred and like lawlessness, okay? If you can remain, like, be responsible, stand up for what has to be stood up for, but don't contribute to the lawlessness, because the lawlessness is an attribute of a low vibe society. So it's like, let's not be so foolish to let them, reel us into that, bait us into that trap, because like that is not good for society. We got to do what's best for like the tribe, the country as a whole, not get so caught up in things that quite frankly we don't know anything about. All we know is what they say to us from a stage, and in my opinion we have proof that they're all liars. So we ought to be more concerned about how we're conducting ourselves amongst ourselves, being respectable, kind, logical, keeping the country running like a well-oiled, honest, noble machine. Not that it is, by the way. I know that. Trust me, I'm not like that ignorant. But what I'm saying is that's the goal, and that's what we should be. Each of us can just start with ourselves. Now we're all singing that song. But anywho's, so yeah, be I just encourage you. I encourage you because the next part of the story is after that time, as you get to know yourself, then you really, really, really will magnetize to the new song. But you've got to you probably have to first of all, write the song within your own spirit, sing the song, get the song so, and I'm back to analogies, get the song so tuned in that your life, that's your life song now. It's yeah, my life song was that one with all the people that I knew, but I was sick of living that life, so I went my way. This is a new life song that I sing, and I literally made a playlist, by the way. I was I have got to reprogram my whole self, so I put together a bunch of uplifting, great songs that are high vibe, when it's not only musically, but lyrically make you want to dance, kind of and also remind you how fierce you are, kind of thing. So anyhow, the next part of it is that you really will magnetize to a new tribe, or the people that will go with you will go with you, and you just never know who's gonna keep going. It's a journey, and that's the other thing is it's a journey. It's a long journey. It's a rough journey. And so sometimes you just don't know who's going to be able to keep going. But the Spirit will always, 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 always make a way. Make a way out, make a way to level up, make a way to tune in your frequency. And often it does require what would be kind of a seemingly appearing to be possible setback, but at the end they don't matter. Little setbacks don't matter. They appear to be a setback, and it feels like it at the time, but it's not really. Every season ends up being used along the way, even the ones that are just treacherous, because you what you learn from those treacherous seasons and what you find out about yourself, it kind of backfires, honestly. If it was some sort of an attack from an enemy, it's yo, you just showed me exactly who I am. Thank you very much. Turns out I am a fucking badass that cannot be held down. I would have never known. So, yeah, let them rip, let it go, let it loose. I'm, you know what I'm saying? When you find out who you are, then it's oh, okay. Makes a lot of things make sense too. Why so much has come up against you. Why, it's just things didn't even make sense. It's this doesn't even make sense. But then this part, by the way, I'm prophesying more than I'm speaking to experience, but it's from what I hear from up the road is that, we really will have people who are actually in our tribe, and it will not be forced. It won't have to be, it won't be, it's effortless. It'll be, I mean, I don't know if effortless is the right word, because you got to put effort in, but I'm just saying it'll be smooth sailing, and it will be rewarding, and it will be comfortable. Maybe not immediately at first, because you're in your new song. Oh, this was the biggest key though. This was the biggest key. Okay. Everybody pay attention. In case you're not, because I've been rambling trying to get a hold of this thread of energy. Okay, I remember now. The most important thing is do not make any commitments or get settled when you know that you're in this in-between phase. When you know that you're leaving one song, quote unquote, one frequency, and you're settling into a new one, but you're not quite settled in yet. And one way that you know about being settled in is starting to see consistent proof of manifestation of that higher vibration, of that new season, of that next level self. And because what I want to say is, when you're in that in-between zone, it almost always, somebody will come in that is like on that low vibe, and they'll either try and match your frequency as if they're the same as you, but the thing is they'll be able to do that for a little while, but then they can't maintain it. And then or somebody will come in from your past that was like a friend, and like an old person, somebody you used to know, and then it's like, oh, that familiarity thing, and it's so comforting, and you've been isolated, and you're trying to, sink into this new unknown frequency that you're stepping into. It's, and then you run into this very comfortable, familiar thing, and it's very tempting. So the whole message here, the point of the message, thanks for sticking through the ramble, was do not put roots down or commit to anybody, anything, when you're in the middle of the in-between. Just be aware, be aware that could that could crop up in your life, and don't be lulled into it by the familiar comfortability, comfort. Don't be lulled into that because it's just like comfortable and familiar, but just keep your eyes on who you're becoming. Keep your eyes on the vision of the person that you're becoming. Keep your eyes forward, forward, forward. What is she like? What is he like? What is she like? Not what do they like, but what are they like? And remember that person wouldn't have anything in common with that old life, aside from it being their old life. That's it. All right, my baby's starting to wake up because I'm talking, so be blessed, be well, be free.